USDA's National Organic Program. You can't get that certification because that's a federal certification. It's federally illegal. But we just adhere to those standards. So basically, no chemical nutrients, no toxic chemical pesticides. Our nutrition program is based on dry organic amendments and compost and microbiome soil. Another big difference between growing and living soil in these large beds is we reuse that soil cycle after cycle. So when we harvest, we just cut the plant down at the soil line, leave the old root ball in there, get a post hole digger, dig a 1 gallon pot size hole, and just put the next plant right in next to it, and sort of stagger it that way. So that way, all those relationships that the last plant took, its whole life to form with the fungal network and bacteria in the soil, could just be passed right off of that next plant. That old root ball rots in the ground. By the time you're done that next cycle, you just pull out the stem and it's like a lollipop coming out. Everything's gone. So with our first flower we got online, we're on our 6th cycle in that same soil. In my, previous to this, we got plants in the ground in February last year. Prior to that, I was just a guy in my basement growing weed. So in my basement, I've run one of these beds for 5 years straight. That's no problem. The trees and the soil continues cycle after cycle. So large soil volume is very important. A lot of people growing organically might grow in pots and use liquid chemical nutrients, which is technically still organic, but then you're not really incentivizing the life in the soil to have to break down, that stuff like fish bones, alcohol, all that stuff, and feed the plants. So, I prefer to have a large soil media like this and just top dress a little of those dry organic amendments, a little compost, and just let the bed keep cycling for years and years and years. So yeah, soil volume is very important when you're growing organically. Talked a little bit about the beds. This is just a picture of me filling up one of those beds when we first opened up. They're huge. They're a real pain in the ass to fill them up, but we can reuse them for years and years and years, so it's worthwhile. It's just soil volume is so important when it comes to growing organically. I was mentioning the nutrition earlier. Again, it's no chemicals, no salt-based nutrient mix, no A, B, CalMag you throw in there. It's basically just those dry amendments, compost, and then filtered water. We have irrigation lines in the beds so that we can keep the water in the beds evenly moist, which is really important. It's a little different than hydroponics where you might have like a rock wool cube, and you have to constantly feed it with chemical fertilizers and water all day, let it dry back, feed it again, sort of a high frequency fertigation strategy. With the living soil system, you just want to keep a nice even moisture in the beds all the time. That's what the microbes like. That's sort of what will keep them happy, keep the nutrients cycling and breaking down and feeding the plants. So we have those lines to keep it moisture every day, and then we hand water 3 times a week to cover the entire soil surface. So that's where a lot of those dry organic amendments that we spread on there are, right at the surface, with a little compost on top. So the benefit is, we're not using something that's derived from, oil or natural gas, synthetic. We're not placing that in the beds over and over again, or the media, which ends up actually killing the microbes and limiting microbial diversity. We're not putting so much of that salt nutrition into the plots or the beds that we're raising the osmotic pressure, meaning that would basically raise the amount of salt in the soil to a point where instead of what a plant's supposed to do is function like a water pump, it has its roots in the medium, it has its leaves, which have little holes in them on the bottom called stomata, and the plant is supposed to pump water up with all the nutrients, and then water vapor comes out of the stomata. The faster you can get water to pump through the plants, basically the faster you can get it to grow and get more nutrition cycling through it. But with the salt-based fertilizer like that, if you were to not flush, if you were to keep, you wouldn't be able to keep using these beds year after year. Eventually build up to such a high level of salt in there that it would be so dry. There'd be so much pressure for more water because there's so much salt in there that it would actually pull water out of the plant instead of putting water up through the plant. So the plant would just wilt and die. So that's why if you were over fertilizing in the same pot for a long time, that would eventually happen. And the plant would not be able to pump water up. The water from the plant would actually get sucked down into the soil. So that's, that's a big reason not to use these chemical fertilizers. And I don't mean to knock them for, they feed most of the world. The population increased dramatically after it was discovered how to make these fertilizers, and so there's a place for them. I just don't think they grow the best cannabis. What I want to smoke. So we talked about dry amendments, compost, and the goal of this system is to feed the microbes in the bed, not the plants. The plants will form a relationship with those microbes and take care of that. Mentioned a little bit about a lot of life in the bed. So there's a lot of biodiversity going on in the soil, lots of worms. We have little arthropods, different types of soil mites, different types of beetles wandering around. They just sort of pop up. They come in the compost for the most part and then spread around. And then really the big things are the microbes, the bacteria, and the fungi in the soil. That's really what does most of the nutrient cycling. Some of the beetles and springtails and little insects will take some of the bigger chunks of amendments and break them down and make them more accessible to those microbes. But it's the fungi and the bacteria that are really forming those relationships in the root zone under the soil that feed the plants. And lots of other things, nematodes, protozoa, and that sort of goes into our IPM program. And IPM stands for Integrated Pest Management. Basically, what that acronym refers to is a holistic system for protecting your plants from pests, disease. So everything from what types of pesticides you would apply to scouting and biosecurity, all that stuff. So with us, we don't use any pesticide sprays at all. Certainly no toxic chemical ones. If we ever did a spray, if some emergency happened, we'd be spraying something like a beneficial fungus or something like that, something a good fungus that would eat a bad fungus. But we don't really have to do that even because we have a very proactive approach towards applying beneficial organisms. So our beds are already diverse with tons before we even start putting good bugs in. Lots of life going on. So if a bad bug wants to come in or a bad fungus wants to come in, it has an uphill battle because it has to compete with all the other stuff that's living in there that wants to eat it. So, versus if you're growing hydroponically, let's say like a rock wool cube, or maybe just a sterile pot of cocoa that you're feeding chemical nutrients to, if a bad bug or disease comes in, there's nothing really to compete with it. So it can just take off until you have to spray some poison on it or something to get rid of it. So we're sort of already at an advantage there, but then we proactively add a lot of good organisms. So we do soil nematodes are really useful and important. We use a species called Steinonema feltiae, and basically if you apply that to the soil, it will eat the larvae of bad bugs like thrips, fungus gnats, stuff like that, keep their populations low, apply like every 2 weeks or so. Soil mites, we put different species of mites in the soil, and they really do the same thing. With us having these beds and keeping them forever, if we have a pest in there, like we have a few thrips, they're going to stay there because that bed it's there, that ecosystem exists. And a lot of times the goal is just to maintain a very low presence of them. So those nematodes keep them down. Mites in the soil will eat their larvae that are crawling around in the soil. We applied canopy mites. This picture here is a mite species called Cucumaris, and that's a little sachet. It's a little packet that we hang on the plants, and for 30 days, little baby mice will wake up out of there and come out and walk around the canopy and eat the bad bugs on the canopy. And then we have a whole array of different other types of mites to apply. Like, say, if we had a spider mite outbreak, we would just get some Persimolis mites and sort of just cast them all over the canopy, and they're sort of good for paratrooping in and destroying the problem. And then you might apply some more sachets of different kinds of mites like this to then patrol afterwards and sort of take care and keep the steady state going. And then we apply different predatory beetles. There's one called Aureus. It's called the pirate bug. It has like a really big pointy snout, and it penetrates into the thrips or whatever it's eating and sucks them out. So they're really helpful. They can sting you though, but they usually don't. So we keep a proactive program of always having them there. And then if we were to encounter an outbreak, we have an SOP and a list of different organisms that we pick up to take care of whatever pest it is if we had additional pressure. Another important aspect is to never get the bad bugs in the first place. So anytime we have a dispensary coming by to do a tour, they're going to suit up in coveralls, hairnets, shoe covers. We have little wet mats that are full of peroxide-based sanitizer. We used to have 3 or before going in. And then, our guys work in the facility, they're always going to have a uniform, that they put on their shoes just for there. They're going to shower before they come in, wear hairnets, gloves. Like our beds aren't sterile at all, but we still really try to maintain good sanitation everywhere else. There's no reason should be leaves or dirt lying all over the ground under the beds. It's just a place for bad things to breathe and grow. So sanitation, cleaning, but then no sanitizing in the beds themselves, because that's, we don't want to kill microbes there. And then scouting. Scouting is another really important key part. It's basically going through, checking out where's the pressure at, logging it, making sure that we track it. There's little sticky cards you hang in the canopy, and then you go by, see what do we got there today, how many's increased from last time I checked this. And then you can also kind of get a gauge for good bugs too when you're scouting, like those pirate beetles. We buy them, but I'm finding that they're sort of liking the environment, because we just added them in a couple months ago, and I'm finding baby ones all over the place. So that's a good sign that they're breeding, and that's free. That's free labor right there. So that's a rare thing. So then I just sort of wanted to cover, why living soil, practical. Like, we're talking a lot about dirt and bugs and stuff, but it's about really delicious weed is the reason that I switched over to this system. I mean, for years I grew hydroponically, grew in deep water culture systems. I did rock wool, cocoa coir, different fertilizer companies, and then I had all these different, genetics that I had phenotyped in my basement for years. So I had all these different strains, and I had the mother plants, and was used to them, and smoked them for different reasons. And then I switched over to this organic system. I had those same cuts, those same exact genetics grown in living soil, where it's a whole different spectrum of effects. There might be, I used to have a ghost train haze that I still have. I can't grow it in a facility because it creates pollen and seeds, so it's in the basement only. But it is like, it's really great in the morning. It's like an Adderall. It's like, you can really knock out bullshit computer work, productivity, whatever you need to do. But for my wife, it caused her way too much anxiety. She's like, she liked it, but she just couldn't really handle it. I started growing it in this living soil system, and it still had those positive, productivity effects, but all the hard edges were really rounded out for her. She didn't get anxiety from it anymore. So it's just, the way I like to look at it is, I think it's like how much more delicious that organic tomato is. It's all that additional interactions with the microbes in the soil create just a broader spectrum of flavor and effects. I'm not a big vape guy, so when I talk about the entourage effect, or the total scope of the high, I like to think of the vape as like a little piece of the pie like this, and maybe like a hydroponically grown weed would be like 70% of the pie. But then you add in the better effects, I think, for the same exact genetics in a living soil system, and it's just it's just more full spectrum and more enjoyable to me. So that's really the main reason I switched over to it. It starts with flavor. That's the most noticeable thing, and I'm of the opinion that if you like the way something tastes, you're gonna like the high. That's how it's always been for me. So that's always what I've grown through it for. I didn't have access to lab testing or anything. I just had my, what I like to smoke and the feeling and the flavor of it, and that's sort of most of the genetics we have right now. Thankfully, some of them tested high enough to be commercially viable, because people just won't buy shit that's 20% anymore. But yeah, and it is better for the environment. I would say selfishly, that's not why I picked the system. I think it's a nice perk, and we're not flushing a bunch of nitrates down the soil and like polluting the bay and shit like that. But I really will say, selfishly, I do this because it makes the best taste of weed, in my opinion. That's really the long and short of the reason why to do it. Some of our strains here on the back, these are like basically the mainstay ones for us at the moment. That sour blueberry is really nice. It's sort of like that ghost train haze productivity, really good blueberry flavor to it. White Widow is the biggest demand right now. It has a terpinolene dominant terpene profile that people have really been looking for. Really nice taste on it. Bubba Kush, nice indica, but won't knock you out. Yeah, Acapulco Gold is our biggest seller. This one, my father-in-law, who's just really normal, he's a baby boomer guy that just secretly smoked pot his entire life, and like basically didn't do anything, didn't tell anyone about it. He has just been bitching about Colombian Gold, Acapulco Gold. So maybe like 10 years ago, I went through this buying all these seeds and all these different genetics and phenotype hunting and different Mexican, South American varieties. And basically, this is what we landed on, this Acapulco Gold that was closest to what he was expecting. It's never going to be dried outside in fucking Mexico. It's never going to be grown outside. Well, it can be technically grown outside, not in our facility. Hopefully one day we'll get outside too. But so that one's Baby Boomer approved. Lemon Runts is my new favorite. It's just the plant at the end is just completely purple, except the bud, because the bud's so fucking frosty you can't see the purple.
I need to tell you a story in connection with that color purple.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And it's frosty as hell, great bag appeal. It has lemon flavor, but it's like more savory as well. It's like nice with a glass of red wine. And
sometimes
then,
you can get fish from it.
Yeah.
The lemon syrups are kind of.
Oh yeah, it could be a little Lysol-ish.
Oh yeah,
exactly. Yeah. This one's just like a hint of lemon and then pretty savory, like carry on in there. And then this pineapple upside down cake is like just the craziest pineapple smell and flavor. But this is my load tester culprit that tested like 20% THC and like 1% terps, but will smell and taste more than like a fucking 3 or 4% terp strain. So, I mean, lab testing, yeah. So this one, really nice flavor, but I won't be able to grow a ton of it until, I see it sell through in stores, because I just know a lot of people, probably not you guys, seem to care about this, buy weed based on THC percent still. So, that is how it is. But we're phenotype hunting, we're going to keep bringing new stuff out. And that's really long and short of my spiel. Do you guys have any questions about it?
Are you guys practicing like a no-dig kind of?
No-till, that's right. That's something I didn't mention. That's a good point. So what he's referring to is basically in these beds, I was talking about harvesting right in the soil line. We're just leaving that root ball in there. We're not going to till it up. Even like a lot of times when you top dress and dry organic amendments like that, it would kind of be ideal to till it in a bit and then get them under the ground, because then they're under the ground. They're going to be more available to the microbes. Less of it will off gas and be wasted. But then when you do that, you're breaking up that microbial network in the ground too, and you're tilling it up. And that's how the Dust Bowl happened. They just tilled, destroyed all the native soil structure, and then just clouds of dust and erosion and compaction. So we do that. We don't till up the soil at all. Basically, we just it's just the size of the pot's about 1 gallon. Just hose tool digger in, remove that plug, put the new pot in, and then those plugs that we remove, we bring downstairs, and I bust them up, and I put them in a cement mixer and mix in new amendments and compost, and then we use that for a pot of our veg plants. So we use it all, and I don't buy any more soil, and we just keep it circulating. Yeah. And it's, exactly. I mean, honestly, it's fucking, the soil mix I like to buy comes from Colorado, so I'm really not interested in paying to ship dirt from Colorado. Yeah, not a good strategy in the long run.
Living soil, there's no purging. You're not purging.
No flushing. Yeah. So basically, it's sort of like the whole second half of because the flush, the goal of it is to rinse out all that salt-based nutrient, all that petrochemical-derived nutrient. So with us, we're doing just a couple top dresses through the cycle. So the second half of the cycle, it's not really getting any nutrition anymore. So then it's all just sort of like a slow flush. The microbes are breaking down all those amendments, and we're just watering. And it's nice finish. And then at the end, I do a soil test that I keep in a spreadsheet, so we can say, okay, this bed, here's the nutrient levels from this harvest, that harvest, sort of see ebb and flow. And then you can adjust that amendment strategy. Hey, I'm missing potassium and magnesium. I can see it slowly going down this bed, or I'm seeing sodium build up, which you don't want in there. Then you might need to get some gypsum, put it in the water and flush it out, and then it'll knock all that sodium off the soil and backfill it with calcium, which you want. So it's just about watching those nutrient levels over time, and I find it really helpful just to have a nice long spreadsheet that you can just sort of see how it goes over time. And oh shit, that cycle, I remember that happened, because you sort of it's sort of a long-term strategy. You can't just sort of go in and hit it with something new. Like hydroponics, you can change the nutrients within the day. You can switch it out to a new fucking cycle if you need to. Yeah. So it's sort of more of like a wait and see, and don't make any big changes, and just let it sort of evolve, sort of thing.
How you charging it?
So we have these. You see these little like white posts that are up there. So they're around the bed, and then we just do normal 6-inch square, plastic trellis, 2 or 3 layers depending on the strain. Like the Acapulco Gold typically needs another layer at the end because the colas just get so fucking chunky that it just wants to lay down on itself. Yeah. So just plastic, and that's. I wanted to look at a different type of trellising. The plastic stuff is just completely standard, though. It seems like it'd be nice to have something not plastic, but it just seems to be the thing to use. I haven't found anything better yet. If you get like the little something that's like more of a mesh or like a rope or something, then when you're like cutting it up, like the little fibers will fly off of it. So I hate that.
Hemp rope probably try out a little bit. You get the fibers.
The fibers, yes. When you cut it, it's just like it's like a puff, right next to a big delicious body.
Right.
I wonder how much like hemp wax like trellis would be. Probably expensive.
Or just like having
You
a
wouldn't be
hemp
cutting it,
fabric
you'd be like trying to
kind of.
get the buds out of it.
Honestly.
It's kind of like the wicks, right? They come like
Yeah.
There's no like fiber spreading.
Should be able to come like Reynolds raffles.
Yeah, right.
For that.
Yeah.
Talk to Rob.
How many times are you putting per
Oh
bed?
yeah.
So typically we have a couple different size beds, but it's around 44 for we have 5 by 6. Most of our beds are 5 foot wide by 16 foot long. Typically it's around 44. Certain strains are different, but I kind of prefer doing the same amount of plants. But if I know one that is maybe not going to be keeping up, maybe I'll cut the clone a week earlier and veg that one a week longer so it's a little bigger when it gets in there, and that sort of thing. But 44 seems to be the sweet spot.
You guys do pre-rolls and
We do, yeah.
so it's both.
These are the pre-roll packs we have. Basically they're old school cigarette
I like that.
style.
It's got a charm to it.
When I was in Afghanistan, I smoked Lucky Strikes. So
That's
right.
That was the first thing when those came in.
Yeah.
Just like, are we selling cigarettes?
Right?
I like them because they're also like very discreet, but they're also compact too. I noticed a lot of our female customers they prefer those because of the packaging so small it fits perfectly in
It's more sweet than a bunch of tubes.
Yeah.
And I sort of wanted to do a big full-size cigarette pack, but then I realized like no one's going to want to spend fucking I don't know how like if you had 20 of those it'd be like fucking $200 or something, and that just would not work out.
And it was a process to get the 48 pack.
48, wow.
Yeah, it's 48.
Half grammers.
Yeah, it
Oh,
comes
around
out.
there.
What does it come out to? Like 24 grams. I think.
What does it
Yeah,
package
it's about-
look like?
it's
Like a
about
jar?
20
Literally,
It's almost
It's like it
Oh,
probably looks
okay.
like a normal jar, but it's a little bigger than a normal jar.
Yeah, so they're just all stuffed in there.
Good for a bar.
restaurant owner.
Yeah.
It's an inventory nightmare. I work in
I hear
inventory.
people want
and
more
it's
large
inventory.
formats.
It's just like
It's like a canister, yeah.
Restaurant owner.
Yeah.
So all he does is he buys like 1 or 2. He sends his wife in, they go. They put one in the kitchen. At the restaurant. They put one in the living room of the house.
Nice.
When they go by, because again, the guy's never got time. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
It's right there.
Yeah.
That's like another thing with my father-in-law. So he's always been a big joint roller, and now his fingers are
That's right, cramp up and stuff like that.
So he
Right?
loves
Yeah.
it.
That's the other people that love like pre-rolls too.
Yeah.
It's a market for
Yeah, exactly. And we are going to be releasing these as singles, and we're going to do
the 0.5s or full.
so these what we're going to do with them is it'll be the same size. So I think these are 0.6s basically, but we're going to infuse them. So I'm not completely done the R&D yet. I think I'll get it somewhere like 0.8 or something like that, or maybe a gram.
strain specific.
Yeah, strain specific with the same keef, harvested the same
Oh,
facility.
you're talking about
So if
put
it
it all
was
right back in.
pineapple, it's going to be. I wanted to just do the keef on the outside at first because I really liked that
People
experience.
miss that. I miss that. We were talking about this.
It's not going to hit the THC numbers required to sell. So we're going to do the keef on the inside too. And I'm started tweaking that in right now to try to land it on. Smoke's just as good and isn't all jammed up. And then keef on the outside. Get it like to me.
Some of them jam. You're right.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to compete percentage-wise on stuff infused with distillate and diamonds and all this shit.
And not
Yeah, but you know what? I got enough guys coming in where the only thing you can get is stuff on the outside, the closest to you.
Yeah.
Let's go. This stuff is supposed to.
And And yeah, there's a lot of people who like that too.
But yeah,
having to keep on the
they
outside. It's
specific-
just sometimes like
Really
the
don't want it
distillate
on the
is not what
Yeah.
people want
Listen,
on the outside.
it's I don't have to sit there and I have to take this and then this and that. I just lost like 30 minutes of my time. But again, it's also hey, you know what? I really like this flower and this product. It's all one.
That's a good question. What do you guys think the THC level for a product like that has to hit to be marketable?
Again,
30s to 40s.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say,
That was
typically high 30s, low 40s in that aspect. I don't think you have to get again. There's specific guys that again buy specifically because it hits the 50s or it hits
sure.
the 60s.
You're gonna need to put some sort of diamonds or something in that.
But I hate to say your average casual smoker coming in, they just want to take it like up a half or up next. You know, they don't want to go 5 levels. Up.
Yeah, yeah.
They wanna go from. If they want that, to me, then you're switching over to a straight concentrate or a vape or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You know, you're losing that whole flower sense at that point. So I think and again, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just accenting the hubcap at that point.
Yeah. I think for something like, I was thinking somewhere anywhere around maybe just south of 35 seems to be the sweet spot burnability if we're just using heat.
Again, some companies really get hung up with the numbers, and that's their thing. But again, you got a lot more to offer than that. But again, if you can throw something, maybe it doesn't have to be a full line, maybe something up around there, or be consistent up there.
Yeah.
Because now you have a solid. Because again, people would rather have the consistency.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Wait, question. What's the minimum percentage that you're saying that has to be
For someone to buy it at a dispensary,
for you saying the percentage?
THC wise, I think 20% is basically the floor for most dispensaries to want to buy a strain. Unless they have we have some dispensaries who are really familiar with this pineapple now, and we're able to even if a batch came back at 18%, they have the clientele that want it, and honestly you're not going to even know the difference, and it doesn't really affect the effect. So it's like I basically just try to grow not a shitload of it now until that fan base of it sort of grows a little bit more, and then just on that, because I don't like to. What I've been trying to do, and I'm a novice at selling weed. I'm just coming out of my basement into commercial operations. I don't want our strains to be different prices. Because this one has higher THC and that one, because I don't think that's better. So I want them all to be the same price, unless it's like discounted for whatever reason, which is that's just we got a shitload of this. We're gonna try to move it, but I don't want to be price based on THC because I just think that sends out the wrong message.
Yeah, you guys know how we are at this place. It's about finding that balance. It's not just the highest thing coming across. We think even average. 17 to 21 for us is about average. Kind of coming in. Going back 10, 12 years, that number is probably anywhere 7 to 11.
Oh yeah.
You guys. But to me, 23, 25. We're going out Friday night, pushing a little bit. Anything above that, there's no such thing as medicinal cannabis. At this point, we're targeting specific areas. So if you're that type of level, what are we targeting? Was it a sleep issue? Was it an anti-inflammatory issue? To me, now you're targeting specific things, and that's why again you should really understand terpene balancing, cannabinoids, and whatever else you're feeling about things.
Did you guys see anything like the local?
It's crazy, man. Because State first started, and we were just medicinal only. How many beautiful CBD strains we had? How many and we didn't even know we were smoking at the time. 2 to 1s or 5 to 1s. We had no clue we were even smoking them. All of a sudden, again, a few MSOs or whatever start jacking up numbers. I remember the first 30%, like Dog Walker was afternoon delight. There was 31%. But everybody lost their mind. Oh, was it really that? Who the fuck knows, man? That was windy that day. It just happened to be But
He's out of someone's hand.
Somebody was leaning on the fucking console, and it just happened.
He just came back from a smoke break.
Yeah.
Had some resin on his
But to
fingertips.
me, again, and you guys know, it's just the education. If you understand what you're looking for, and you understand, to me, if you understand reading the label, that's half the battle there. Not that we're always going to be here to answer questions, but you may be somewhere where you don't have some answer questions. So you do have that basic or underlying knowledge, you can make a definitely better informed kind of decision in that aspect. I just showed you, an awesome reason to go buy organic.
And you gotta treat it like food, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do in your body? And
We're not going to push the most expensive thing. We're not always going to push the, but we're going to fit what fits your environment. If you're there to spend the money or you have it, then yeah, we're always going to tell you to push and get a better product. The same aspect, we always had that paycheck that week, so you know what? We figure it out. So we figure it out. Whatever that is.
there's something for everybody. So when that came out, when you guys had the bin, I was like, oh, man, you guys have it.
Do you guys sell many one-to-one strains? CBD, THC?
People,
I feel like it's something that definitely should be more on the market. Breakwater's the only one that kind of does something sometimes with CBD and stuff like that. And something
It's still available only like down
it's a lot easier to kind of explain in a gummy form.
Yeah.
Just because it kind of targets it specifically. Like we always use the 20 to 1 like pineapple can go to the big old wall, not be drooling on herself because all the anti-inflammatory is just really, really great for her in that aspect. As opposed to oh, you know what, she's going out with Rudy. She wants a little bit of psychosis, we'll dial down to a 5 to 1 or 4 to 1 or something. That aspect. But we kind of use it that kind of thing. I know my friends in the Hudson Valley have been doing a lot of 2 to 1s, 1 to 1. I feel just straight. And it's going to be a lot easier again, when you kind of get a lot more of that kind of classification.
I just phenotype hunted it's a land race from a village called Meru from Kandahar province, Afghanistan, and it grew. It's like it had this crazy structure. It's leafy as hell. It's a pain in the ass to work with. We tested 10% THC, but it was like 8% CBD, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Because I was looking at this land race shit, trying to find different shit. That's like that. There's just no possible way I could ever sell that is.
That's so again, my favorite. I'm not a vape guy at all, but Breakwater does that clean CBD. Or my street's testing it
Royal CBD.
Well, yeah. The my street is just out of this world. The CBD is you gotta take 2 rips before bed, and all the aches and pains are goodbye. It's just insane. But I think the flower eventually, again, when the race showing and everybody starts to figure that out, it'll start to that. Because again, it's just like in brewing, man. With IBUs, everybody wanted the most bitter IPA, but I think what we top off at 106, and then mine was at 133. Mine was 150. Well, guess what, man? It don't fucking matter at that point. You're just wasting time and energy.
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense.
How do you guys feel about the class?
It's a good one.
Yeah. Any questions you
That's
guys can
me,
think
man.
about?
That's the one.
Yeah, and I encourage, even though it is illegal, I encourage everyone to grow at home. That's how I started, and
For educational purposes.
Yeah.
Only for educational purposes
Yeah.
only.
Everybody have 21 years of age. Batteries not included.
I always want to, but just don't know how.
I mean, I would say starting with this system instead of learning the hydroponics, that's like a chemistry set. You just you can buy.
Seeds from?
My favorite breeder is Humboldt Seeds. Humboldt Seed. There's a few different ones. There's Humboldt CSI, and then this one's Humboldt Seed Organization. I think is one I get a lot. That's where I got my sour blueberry from. They're very nice, reliable. And then I just say get a nice big pot. A living soil mix. Build a Soil makes a great one. Kiss Organics is another one that makes a good one. There's you could just go to the local garden center and just buy their organic potting mix. I think there's Coast of Maine is a brand that I see in local garden centers, and they use a lot of seafood, clam and lobster shells, I guess, from New England, and a lot of recycle a lot of that into the soil. Yeah, and a lot of those soils will have enough nutrition for almost the whole cycle. And maybe all you have to do is top dress a little dry organic nutrition, some compost on top, and just let it rip. Obviously, it is illegal, so
How hard is it to keep a bedroom and a flower?
if you have a good basement,
No, I'm in an apartment, so
Okay.
right now it's improbable,
Very
but
difficult.
one day.
Very
Yeah,
difficult.
that's what I'm saying.
one day
breakfast-
the basement's ideal. It's discreet, it's cool. You set up a couple tents.
So just one tent is my whatever, my veg tent.
And
and
one
then
tent.
the flower.
The loudest thing would probably be a fan. That's
Oh,
it.
okay.
The consistent fan sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 different tents. One tent is on a 12 hours on, 12 hours off length cycle. That tells the plant hey, it's getting towards the end of the season, that long dark period means I need to make my flowers and seeds and I need to reproduce, you know. But if you keep your veg tent on at 18 hours on and only 6 hours off, then you're telling the plant, hey, it's early in the season, I just need to grow more branches and keep vegetating, and then you cut little clones off of that, cut a little branch off, put in peat moss, little cube, let it form roots, and then you got your net cut.
What's up with purple haze? Is it gone? I've been searching fucking reading for
We're phenotype hunting a super silver haze right now.
hazes. You said Ghost Train haze.
That's my fucking favorite. I want to get more Ghost Train seeds and find one that doesn't hermaphrodite and put out pollen. That's the other problem.
They're tough to grow, but the bud structure is beautiful.
Yeah. It's like one of my favorite strains. It kills me. I can't grow it.
So, are you gonna go for all classic strains? Because I think that's a great thing. Because not a lot of other brands do all classic strains too. So it's like definitely appreciated for people.
We're getting a Durban poison in. We're gonna try out. That's a new thing, right? So yeah, that's what I like. So that's what I've been trying to do all these. I was in Afghanistan and I started growing when I got back. So I didn't bring home. I could have brought home fistfuls of fucking seeds, but I just didn't do it. So I just been scouring and trying to find authentic seeds from different parts of Afghanistan. It's like I keep growing them out. And the THC is not there, you know.
Yeah.
But I like to smoke, and you know.
Smoke the hash?
No, well, no, the hash I did smoke. Yeah. And also, like we patrol through these big fields of weed, and you just rip off coals and put it in your body. And I was kind of lucky because I was an officer and I was in charge of an EOD platoon. And we have like sensitive classified materials about disarming bombs and stuff. So we have our own little compound, and I'm the highest ranking guy in there. And so like if the infantry colonel comes by and says this and that and this, he doesn't necessarily come in. Like I'd come out and eventually talk with him. So we were able to, you know, we did stuff we weren't supposed to do.
You're doing a lot of stuff that you should do, other people don't do.
Yeah, exactly. Balancing it out.
So do you think you'd be in the middle of the fucking parking lot hacking sector in this scenario?
Right.
That's Angel Hair from this is Angel Hair from Good Pizza.
I've seen the podcast. I was curious about the
Yeah, I was desperate to get a job in cannabis for years and years and years. I never got one until I opened a cup.
It was fun.
That's a good way to do it.
I was in alcohol for so long, and I initially applied to actually be a grower.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It didn't go through for some reason. I went back to alcohol for a little while, and then alcohol like just wasn't working at that point. And we're doing it right now, but just you know what? Let me fucking give this a go. So there's only 2 spots in town. Like, so most of us met too, which is kind of crazy. But it just shows you kind of like what the wild way develops.
Yeah, that's a small world.
Yeah, into the brew side meets the grow side.
Yeah, really a small world.
Because of plants like that. Because of plants, hops and cannabis.
I didn't know.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They share a lot of pests.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I guarantee
They go through the same
if
struggles.
I blind
Yeah.
fire you,
Yeah.
but you had brewery on the brew day, and you'd be like,
It smells
kind of weedy. What's going on? It's like,
Or
oh,
you
shit.
ever drink a beer
It's the
and
hops,
you kind of
probably,
taste
right?
like
Yeah.
kind of tastes like weed or something.
I have.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's because you're so related. Yeah.
In fact, so the first year we opened, I wanted to do something for 420, so we wound up we collabed with us. I gotta see if I can find a picture, but we did a West Coast IPA. We were trying to find like something like
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a good one
It
too.
was like straight up like pine. The fucking place smelled like fucking just dank, like cowdy for a while. That's awesome.
This is the
That's like,
Wow.
you put on the label, my guys put on the label, wow, this doesn't contain any THC, go visit our buddies down the block.
Yeah.
You know, we're literally 6 minutes down. Yeah.
Hey, couldn't you just buy some hemp buds that are legal and then use them as part of your hops instead of?
Odell in Colorado did that for a minute. Which was actually, it wasn't terrible. It just really wasn't so shelf stable because they were using like the wrong bottle shape and color and all that shit. Hemp isn't
now they're
anything to them.
Angel?
We're gonna be here at the so we actually do. There was a brewery in PA, which actually still
That was
exists, quote unquote,
the sour blueberry.
What part of PA?
put in imprint brewing. It's still
Okay.
they had a CBD drink when we were doing it. So like our guys know how to do that shit. The problem is now with CRC,
Yeah.
so we're looking for offsite shit. Like, I mean, that's like really what we talked about before. Like,
Yeah,
next
smoking it through. Yeah.
See where there's a will, there's a way.
I like that you're keeping the classic, strains on.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a function of me being in my basement by myself for so long. It's like most of their strains I got like 10 plus years ago,
Yeah.
so I don't have like anything hype shit.
You just got the mother on like a veg?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to
and,
understand the process.
I'm sort of a pack rat, so I would always be throwing down more seeds, and then once I find something I like, I don't let go of it, and I just keep it.
Because would you say that, because I'm zero novice, 100% never done it. Would you say it's more care for plants and vegetables or flowering, or
It's easy to care for the veg plants for the most part. Yeah, because you just have a little bit more forgiveness. Like when something's late in flower is when it's most vulnerable. It's got a big bud that is dense, and like so if you have too high humidity, that has extreme amount of humidity inside of it because it has some microclimate in there inside the bud. So it's easier to get mold problems. Veg plants are pretty easy. Once you get cloning down, which is also not very complicated. It's basically about, you have your mother plant, you cut off a clone, which is just a branch of the plant, right? You cut that off, you put it into a moist, either a rock wool cube or a peat moss plug. And then what you have to do is, I talked a little bit about the plant being a water pump.
Yeah.
The problem is if you cut off the roots, then you cut off all the stuff that sucks up water, and you just have one stem that can suck up water. So if it has a bunch of leaves up top, so you should trim off most of the leaves.
Yeah.
But even with the leaves you still leave on the clone, all the water is going to be able to go out the holes in the plant faster than it goes in. So what you have to do is you have to keep it in a high humidity environment. And when the air moisture is high, the plant doesn't transpire water out. It just sort of stays and keeps the water it has. So you put it in like a cloning dome, like a humidity dome, where it's like 80 or 90% humidity in there all the time. And then it gives it it's misty, you have to wipe off the dome. And that keeps the plant from not losing all its water and giving it time to make new roots and then making your own little clone. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, humidity is crazy. I feel like now to adhere to the standards for dispensaries, I feel like too much is getting pulled out.
Sure. You mean
what I
over drying?
Over drying. I think some of the bud is like hard as a rock. Bud used to be like fluffier.
Yeah. And we ran into a problem. I can tell you
less pure time and stuff like that.
I can tell you a specific problem we ran into. So we've been packaging our A's in these little Mylars, and we put them in these trays so they don't bust. We didn't have these little humidity pads.
One more day.
These Mylars aren't perfectly airtight. So if this sits on the store shelf for a few months, and maybe they have it in not the best temperature or whatever it is, it loses some air, and then you get it, and it's dry as hell. So to supplement, we've now started putting these in, and we're changing our package to glass jars. And we'll have one of these in the lids, which will go inside of here. So it's just like, I think a lot of that you're seeing when you get dry bud happens on the last mile after that grower has really tried their hardest to grow something nice, and then it's like the fucking stupid Mylar bag. Yeah. So I think that's why you see, and also there's strict microbial testing, so people, and we, early on, I keep a spreadsheet of it, you look at our bud moisture levels. Early on, there's much more conservative. I was trying it out a little bit more because I was just paranoid about being in commercial operations and passing those tests. And then now our bud moisture levels are way up, and still passing the test.
You would personally probably leave yours a little bit higher level and cure a little bit less maybe, right?
No, I would cure that.
Is that another thing too?
No, you can cure it longer and keep the moisture levels up. Like for instance, we cure on the branch. So we leave the plant on the branch, and that way all the moisture in the branch gets sort of all evened out within the buds too. And that's the way you can cure longer, but not maybe lose too much moisture. But really, I think most of the time you're running into really dry, powdery flour. Even if it's a big MSO with someone that we don't think has good quality, it probably might be the packaging. It's like that last mile.
I know, right?
I like where you guys are going to, like, still using it.
Yeah.
It's a nice class. We have to show people how to get a lot once in a while.
You ever seen that fake? They should probably stick it more.
Although I think I like the
I mean, I like that packaging, but like, fucking, I just couldn't believe it wasn't here today. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Most of the bags, I'm sorry.
No.
Most of the bags coming in, I hate to say it, probably stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody is. They're not sitting there.
Oh, they're not actually going to the different too. Yeah, just because he said like,
We mentioned arrest. They can go back to production, but is some guy gonna sit there and like,
Yeah.
most likely,
probably
not
not.
programming. Yeah, that's what we actually.
Yeah, you have to have like fake fingers in front of you, clamping down. Yeah. And the jars is another thing. That's like people recommended me do Mylars. They actually seal better than the jars. And then it's like, oh no, Mylars don't seal. Yeah. So I still have to crank it down. But that's why I like the idea of having that mixer pack. Because then if you can sell them fucks up cranking it down, it's still.
So these were actually infused a quarter of the lemon ruts that this lovely man.
Really? Yeah. So these were infused with the lemon ruts.